After I was reborn, the system told me that my only mission was to focus on being happy. In my previous life, my girlfriend only cared about the man she truly loved, while my father and stepmother gave all their love to my younger brother. I was nothing more than a stray dog following behind them, never truly valued. The night my brother and I were in a terrible car accident, I watched my parents panic over him while completely ignoring me. At the same time, my phone screen showed countless missed calls from my girlfriend, Lu Yin, but I didn't even bother answering. I just laughed. I was done being weak. If I was given another chance at life, I would make sure everyone who had drained the life out of me paid for what they had done. I slowly opened my eyes with a pounding headache. The pain was intense, but something felt wrong. I wasn't in a hospital. Looking around, I realized I was lying in my own bedroom. I quickly checked my body before grabbing my phone. The bright screen hurt my eyes, but when I saw the date, I froze. It was 3 years earlier, the year I had just graduated from college. I slapped myself twice to make sure I wasn't dreaming. This was real. I had actually been reborn. Feeling excited, I decided to celebrate by going downstairs for barbecue skewers, one of the few things that had ever made me happy in my previous life. After everything I had suffered, I wanted to treat myself. As soon as I opened my bedroom door, 3 pairs of eyes stared at me. My father, my stepmother, and my younger brother. Keeping a calm expression, I walked straight toward the front door. My younger brother spoke first. "Brother, it's almost noon. Are you really going out? Aren't you staying for lunch?" Before I could answer, my stepmother mocked me. "Look at Xiao Che. He's so well-behaved. Unlike some people who graduated from college, but still spend every day wandering around doing nothing." My father slammed the TV remote onto the glass table. "Lunch is almost ready. Stay home." His voice sounded like an order, leaving no room for discussion. But now that I knew exactly who they really were, I simply ignored them, put on my shoes, and walked out. They had become so used to my obedience that none of them reacted until the front door slammed shut behind me. My stepmother immediately screamed, "This is unbelievable. Yang Wei, look at what your son is doing." My father snapped back, "What nonsense? Isn't he your son too?" Then my younger brother pretended to be innocent. "Mom, Dad, please stop arguing. This is all my fault." I didn't bother listening anymore. Out of sight, out of mind. I headed straight to the barbecue shop downstairs while thinking about how I could make money and finally support myself without relying on anyone. Just then, a cold mechanical voice echoed inside my mind. "Congratulations, host. You have successfully bound the love yourself first system. As long as you change the course of your previous life and choose to love yourself, you will receive generous rewards." I couldn't help smiling. Of course, every reborn person should have a system. And honestly, love yourself first. I really liked the sound of that. The moment I entered the barbecue restaurant, the owner greeted me with a smile. "Little Yang, you're here again. The usual?" "The usual. And add 10 more skewers plus 2 bottles of beer." The owner laughed. "Wow, someone seems to be in a great mood today. Is your girlfriend coming to see you?" He knew me well enough to joke around whenever I looked happy. I smiled casually. "No, we broke up." He nodded without asking any more questions. He understood when to stop. His words reminded me that my phone was still filled with photos of Lu Yin. Without hesitation, I deleted every single picture from my lock screen and social media. Just as I finished, the food arrived. I took a bite of the freshly grilled meat, followed by a cold drink of beer. Instantly, I felt genuinely happy. At that exact moment, the system spoke again. "Ding! Congratulations, host. You have experienced your first moment of true happiness. Reward, 500,000 yuan. The money has been legally transferred into your bank account." My phone immediately vibrated with a text message. I opened it and smiled. The 500,000 yuan had really arrived. A cold smile spread across my face. In my previous life, I couldn't even gather the 288,000 yuan bride price. Because of that, Lu Yin slapped me across the face and told me to get lost. Money really could cure a lot of pain. Now that I had the love yourself first system, there was no reason to keep suffering at a miserable job. I decided to quit immediately. After finishing my meal, I took a taxi to the company. Coincidentally, When I walked into the office, Manager Wong was scolding all the employees. He was obviously looking for someone to blame, and the moment he saw me, his eyes lit up. He marched toward me and shouted, "Yang Tian, you actually dare to show up? Do you even know what time it is? Do you want me to fire you?" A good dog doesn't block the road. I shoved Manager Wong's fat body aside without hesitation. I wasn't there to argue. I had only come to resign. In my previous life, he had always been jealous because my girlfriend was beautiful. Every day, he found excuses to make my life miserable, and I had foolishly believed his excuse that he was only helping me grow. Manager Wong stared at me in shock. He couldn't believe that the quiet employee who never talked back was standing up to him. "What did you just say?" he snapped. "Say it again if you've got the guts." I laughed coldly. "You really enjoy being insulted, don't you? Fine. You stupid pig, move out my way." You actually dare to curse at me?" Before he could react, one of my co-workers, who was usually too afraid to speak, suddenly stepped forward. "You're already late, and you still think you're right? Apologize to Manager Wong." I looked at him, walked over, grabbed him by the collar, and lightly patted his face. "I was busy dealing with him and almost forgot about you." His face instantly turned pale. What are you doing? "I'm warning you. This is a country ruled by law." His trembling finger pointed weakly at me as if he were about to cry. "If you don't have the courage, then keep your mouth shut." I pushed him aside and continued walking toward Manager Wong. By now, he had completely fallen silent. "What happened?" I asked with a cold smile. "Weren't you barking just a second ago? Go on. Say something." I stared straight into his eyes. He instinctively covered his mouth and kept backing away. He clearly didn't want to provoke someone acting as fearlessly as I was. Just then, a familiar voice stopped me. "Yang Tian, what are you doing?" I turned around. It was my girlfriend, Lu Yin. She frowned at me with obvious disappointment. "Yang Tian, look at yourself. Is this how someone who works hard every day should behave?" Before she could continue, I interrupted her. "Shut up." She froze. "What did you just say?" I looked at her calmly. "What gives you the right to lecture me?" Her expression immediately darkened. "You actually told me to shut up? Say it again if you dare." I couldn't help laughing. "Why do all of you enjoy being insulted so much?" "Miss Lu, stop barking. Do you understand now?" Instead of getting angry right away, Lu Yin suddenly sneered. "Oh, I get it now. This is just another one of your little tricks. You're still as pathetic as ever. Have you been reading too many martial arts novels? Did you learn some ridiculous mind game technique?" I pointed to my head. "If there's something wrong with your brain, go see a doctor. Don't make life harder for the psychiatric hospital." "What did you say?" Lu Yin had never been spoken to like that before. Her face turned red with anger. "After everything you've done today, don't even think about me forgiving you." I rubbed my forehead helplessly. In my previous life, how would I love someone like her with all my heart? She wasn't anywhere close to being perfect, yet she acted as if the whole world revolved around her. Talking to someone like that was simply impossible. I didn't want to waste another second on her. Without another word, I walked past her and headed straight to the Human Resources Department to submit my resignation. Lu Yin wanted to stop me, but another colleague quietly grabbed her arm. "Don't provoke him anymore. He's obviously not in the right state today." By then, Lu Yin had finally calmed down. When someone first called her over, her only concern had been whether I had caused trouble that might affect her future. She had panicked for a moment, but not because she cared about me. In her mind, I would soon come crawling back to apologize and beg for her forgiveness, just like I always had. She had no idea that everything had already changed. Meanwhile, the HR manager had witnessed everything that happened in the office lobby. Seeing my attitude, he didn't dare argue with me. He quietly completed all of my resignation paperwork. Before leaving, I simply smiled and said, "Thank you." The HR manager stood there in disbelief long after I'd gone. But none of that mattered anymore. The moment my resignation became official, the system's voice echoed in my mind once again. "Ding! Congratulations, host. You have completed the achievement, debating a crowd of scholars. Reward: 10% ownership shares in the city's strongest company, legally transferred to your name. The shares are worth 10 small goals. Please check your account. I paused for a moment. 10% of the city's biggest company. That meant I now own part of my own company. I stroked my chin thoughtfully. With 500,000 yuan already in my account, there was no reason to keep living in that house anymore. I immediately found a large, fully renovated apartment that I liked. After signing the lease, I headed back home to pack my belongings. In truth, there wasn't much to take. The only things that truly mattered were the few keepsakes my biological mother had left behind. I whistled happily as I walked back home. Finally, I didn't have to deal with those awful people every single day. But the moment I arrived, I noticed my bedroom door was wide open. A bad feeling instantly settled in my chest. I rushed inside and froze. My younger brother was standing there, playing with the necklace my biological mother had given me on my coming-of-age birthday. My eyes turned red with anger. Without thinking, I kicked him. "Get the hell out." Caught completely off guard, he fell to the floor with a painful cry. The necklace slipped from his hand and hit the ground. I immediately picked it up, holding it carefully in my palm while checking every inch of it. If there was even the slightest scratch on it, I would make sure he paid the price. Hearing the noise, my father and stepmother rushed into the room. The moment my stepmother saw Xiao Che lying on the floor crying, she screamed and ran over to him. "My precious Xiao Che, are you okay?" He held his back and cried weakly, "Mom." That single word completely shattered whatever self-control she had left. She jumped up and charged straight at me. "You little monster! How could you be so cruel? He's your own brother." I calmly stepped aside and let out a cold laugh. "Brother? I don't have a brother who touches other people's belongings without permission." Unable to hit me, she immediately threw herself into my father's arms and burst into tears. "Look at the son you raised. He's willing to hurt his own brother over a necklace. Ever since I married into this family, all I've known is suffering." As expected, my father believed every word. He frowned at me and ordered, "Apologize to your brother right now, or don't ever call me your father again." I couldn't help laughing. It was a cold, bitter laugh. Holding up the necklace, I looked at him. "You don't recognize this necklace, do you?" For just a moment, his body stiffened, but he still repeated coldly, "Apologize." The answer was already obvious. I carefully put the necklace back into my pocket and looked at him with icy eyes. "I already gave you enough respect earlier today. What did you say?" My father was shaking with anger. Pointing at me, he shouted, "Get out. From today on, I don't have a son like you." I smiled sarcastically. "You people really think highly of yourselves." I wasn't interested in protecting their dignity anymore. Nowadays, even stray dogs dare to bark at people. "You." The three of them were so furious that they couldn't even finish a sentence. "If you can't speak properly, then keep your mouth shut. I'm tired of listening to your endless nagging." Just then, my phone rang. The ride I had booked had arrived downstairs. I didn't want to waste another second in that house. I grabbed the few keepsakes my mother had left me, walked downstairs, and got into the car without looking back at any of them. The moment I left, my stepmother started crying again. "Oh, my life is so miserable. Enough. Stop crying." My father finally snapped in frustration. "What? Yang Hao, now you're yelling at me too?" Sitting quietly in the car, I gently rubbed the necklace in my hand. At that moment, the system's voice sounded again. Asterisk. Asterisk ding. "Congratulations, host. You have successfully left your toxic family, changed the course of your previous life, and learned to love yourself. Reward: 1 Porsche 911 Turbo S GT Series, legally registered under your name. The vehicle is parked in your residential community. The keys are already in your pocket." I reached into my pocket in surprise. Sure enough, the car keys were really there. Before I could even enjoy the moment, my phone started ringing again. Out of habit, I answered. A familiar voice came from the other end. "Young Tian." "I." Before Lu Yin could finish speaking, I hung up immediately. Then I shook my head. What was I thinking? I had forgotten to block her. Without hesitation, I added her number to the blacklist. To avoid any future trouble, I also blocked and deleted the contact information of my father, stepmother, and younger brother. Peace at last. Meanwhile, Lu Yin stared at her phone in disbelief. He actually hung up on me? Furious, she called again. This time, the call didn't even go through. She had been blocked. In anger, she threw her phone onto the floor. A second later, she hurried over to pick it up, afraid it had broken. She couldn't understand it. She thought she was giving young Tian a chance to explain himself. Instead, he had blocked her without hesitation. She had expected him to chase after her like he always did. But this time, he didn't come back. The more she thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. Just as tears began filling her eyes, her phone rang again. There he is. She smiled to herself. She decided to let it ring for a while to teach him a lesson. Nearly 50 seconds passed before she finally answered. But when she looked at the screen, her smile disappeared. The caller wasn't Yang Tian. It was Brother Long. Hello. She answered cautiously. Lu Yan, you've got quite the attitude. Brother Long's cold voice came through the phone. You kept me waiting for 50 seconds. Because of that, the interest on your debt just doubled. If you don't pay soon, it'll only get worse. Lu Yan's face turned pale. Brother Long, I swear I didn't mean it. I'll pay everything back by the end of this month. The end of the month. He let out a cold laugh. Fine, but if you still can't pay, you already know what I'm capable of. I know. As soon as the call ended, Lu Yan's legs felt weak. Just thinking about Brother Long and the way he collected debts was enough to fill her with fear. She immediately tried calling Yang Tian, but every call went straight to the blacklist. Left with no choice, she called Chun Shengshan, the man she had always considered her first love. The call connected. Her voice instantly became soft and sweet. Brother Sean, say what you want or hang up. His impatient tone made it clear that he didn't even want to be associated with her. See, can you lend me some money? Before she could finish speaking, the call was disconnected. Lu Yan lowered her head helplessly. At that moment, she couldn't stop thinking about Yang Tian. No matter what trouble she got into before, he had always been there to solve it for her. For the first time, because of her own pride, she felt like she had truly lost someone important. Even so, she stubbornly whispered to herself, I'm not wrong. Taking a deep breath, she picked up her handbag and headed straight for Chun Shengshan's house. Meanwhile, I was sitting beside the floor-to-ceiling window of my new apartment, quietly enjoying the city view when my phone suddenly rang. The caller was the secretary of Lin Corporation, the richest company in the city. Mr. Yang, the shareholders' meeting will begin tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. Please make sure to attend. I looked down at the busy streets below and smiled coldly. In my previous life, I had worked for Lin Corporation for 7 years. I gave everything I had to that company. In the end, I was laid off, and they even deducted part of my severance pay. But things were different now. I owned 10% of the company's shares. This time, I would be the one making the decisions. The next morning, I arrived at Lin Corporation. As I walked through the entrance, the receptionist immediately stepped in front of me. Sir, do you have an appointment? Without saying a word, I took out my black card and showed it to her. Her expression changed instantly. She immediately bowed almost 90 degrees. I'm very sorry, Mr. Yang. The chairman is already waiting for you on the top floor. The elevator doors opened. Just then, Lu Yan walked out holding a cup of Starbucks coffee. The moment she saw me wearing a perfectly tailored suit, she froze. The coffee slipped from her hand and crashed onto the floor. Brown coffee splashed all over her brand-new Chanel outfit. Ironically, it looked exactly like the coffee she had thrown into my face in my previous life. You, how did you get in here? Her voice trembled as her perfectly manicured nails dug into her palms. I calmly stepped over the spilled coffee and continued walking. Suddenly, she grabbed my wrist. I turned around. Her eyes were already red. I know I was wrong. Can we start over? I looked at her expressionlessly before gently removing her fingers from my arm one by one. Miss Lu, go find your true love and stop bothering me. She immediately pulled her hand back as if she had been burned. Her carefully styled hair was already sticking to her forehead from nervous sweat. Just yesterday, she had gone to Chun Shengshan hoping to rely on him. Instead, the Chun family's bodyguards threw her out. Chun Shengshan looked down at her with complete disgust. A worthless woman like you actually thinks she can marry into the Chun family? At that moment, The elevator lobby suddenly became lively. More than a dozen bodyguards in black suits walked in, surrounding an elderly man with white hair. It was Lin Jinbang, the chairman of Lin Corporation. He walked directly toward me and smiled. Mary Young, I've heard a great deal about you. He shook my hand firmly. Although he looked old, his sharp eyes revealed that he was anything but ordinary. I've heard you have some interesting ideas for the future development of the company. Soon, everyone gathered inside the meeting room. Without wasting any time, I plugged my USB drive into the projector. The large screen immediately displayed document after document. The room instantly erupted into chaos. Every file contained solid evidence that Manager Wang had embezzled company funds. There were also chat records showing that he had secretly contacted headhunters and planned to leave the company while taking important resources with him. If we don't remove someone like him, I said calmly while glancing at the pale-faced Manager Wang, Lin Corporation will eventually be destroyed from the inside. Manager Wang's face had already turned completely white. But that wasn't even the biggest surprise I had prepared. I switched the screen. Photos appeared of Lin Jinbang's most beloved illegitimate son throwing money around like water at a Macau. The entire conference room fell silent. Chairman Lin slowly tapped his cane against the floor before looking at me. What exactly do you want, Mr. Yang? I placed both hands on the conference table and looked directly at every shareholder in the room. I want a seat on the board of directors. I paused before continuing. And I want to become the director of the company's newly established investment department. The moment those words left my mouth, the room erupted. Every major shareholder looked at me in disbelief. To them, my request was simply impossible. No one had expected a newcomer to ask for so much. The room fell into an awkward silence. After a long moment of hesitation, Chairman Lin Jinbang finally spoke. I agree. Everyone turned toward him in shock. Although he remained calm on the surface, deep down he knew the young man standing before him was anything but ordinary. No one knew how many secrets young Tian still held. More importantly, there were things from Chairman Lin's own past that could never be exposed. It was far wiser to cooperate than to become my enemy. Once the largest shareholder agreed, the others had no choice. Even though they were unwilling, they eventually nodded one after another. Watching them give in, I smiled faintly. Looks like none of you have lost your judgment. Meanwhile, back at my former home, chaos had already broken out. Yang Hao returned from work completely exhausted, hoping to relax after a long day. Instead, he found an empty dining table. There wasn't a single dish prepared. His face immediately darkened. Where's dinner? Before anyone else could answer, my stepmother, Xiaohe, walked out of the room with her hands on her waist. Her face was full of annoyance. Why are you yelling? Didn't that boy always cook before? Now that he's moved out, are you expecting me to do everything? Yang Hao looked at ex-house. He didn't have the energy to argue anymore. Do you even know how much pressure I'm under every day? Xiaohe was about to start listing all of her complaints. But Yang Hao interrupted her. Fine, let's stop arguing about who's more tired. He waved his hand impatiently. Where's Xiaoche? Tell him to cook. Those words instantly set Xiaohe off. You want Xiaoche to cook? She raised her voice in disbelief. My son is going to get into one of the country's best universities. You want him wasting his valuable study time in the kitchen. Just then, Yang Che walked out of his bedroom. Seeing his parents arguing, he asked innocently, Mom, Dad, what's wrong? Yang Hao immediately forced a smile. Nothing. Yang Che nodded before asking another simple question. Then, when are we eating? His face looked completely innocent. At 17 years old, he still acted like a helpless child. Hearing that question, Yang Hao rubbed his aching forehead. Without realizing it, he remembered his eldest son. When Yang Tian was only 15, he had already been cooking for the entire family every single day. Dinner was always ready before anyone came home. Every evening, he greeted them with a smile. Dad, you must be tired. Come eat. He took care of the whole family without ever complaining. Despite all of that, he still managed to earn admission to one of the country's top universities. Thinking about it now, Yang Hao let out a deep sigh. He no longer wanted to argue with Xiao He and Yang Che. Turning around, he decided to go downstairs and buy something to eat. Before he could leave, Xiao He grabbed his arm. "If you leave, what about me and Xiao Che?" Yang Hao impatiently pulled his arm away. "Cook it yourselves." Xiao He stared at the hand he had pushed away. Moments later, tears began rolling down her face. "When you married me," she cried, "you promised I'd never have to cook another meal." Yang Hao had completely lost his patience. "Can you just leave me alone for once?" With that, he slammed the front door behind him. The loud bang echoed through the house, leaving Xiao He and Yang Che standing there in stunned silence. Meanwhile, after the shareholders' meeting ended, the familiar mechanical voice sounded inside my head again. "Ding! Congratulations, host. You have successfully protected your own rights. Reward: a confidential dossier containing the secrets of the Chun Shengshan family." As the information poured into my mind, I slowly raised an eyebrow. Interesting. Just then my phone vibrated. The message had been sent from an unfamiliar number. It was Yang Che. Apparently, he had borrowed a co-worker's phone because I had already blocked his own number. The message was short. "Brother, it's me. Dad is in hospital. People's Hospital." I stared at the message on my phone and let out a cold laugh. In my previous life, when my father suffered a sudden heart attack, I had knelt outside the operating room, begging the doctors to save him first. Instead of thanking me, my stepmother slapped me across the face. If you hadn't run away from home and made him so angry, none of this would have happened. In the end, my father didn't survive. After his death, they blamed everything on me. I had sacrificed everything for that family, yet they still treated me as if I were the enemy. This time, I wasn't going to let them drag me down with them again. I turned to the bodyguard behind me. "Get the car ready. We're going to People's Hospital." Outside the ICU, my stepmother was desperately grabbing the doctor's white coat. "Please save my husband first," she cried. "My son will pay the hospital bill." The moment she saw me, her eyes lit up. "There you are," she said. "Go pay the hospital fees." I ignored her and walked straight to the payment counter. She smiled confidently, assuming I would do exactly what she wanted. But that smile disappeared the moment I spoke to the nurse. "I'd like to process Mr. Yang Hao's discharge paperwork." She stared at me in disbelief. "Have you lost your mind?" She rushed toward me, but the bodyguards quickly stopped her. "Yang Tian," she screamed. "You'll regret this." I calmly looked at the woman who had once locked me outside on the balcony for an entire night. Then I said quietly, "The ICU costs 1,200 yuan an hour. A regular hospital room costs 480 yuan a day. Since you're always talking about saving money." I took out my phone and opened years of bank transfer records. Let's start by calculating how much money I've already contributed to this family. The screen was filled with payment records. Since graduating from college, I had paid for the household's utilities, electricity, water bills, Yang Che's tutoring expenses, my stepmother's cosmetic procedures, and countless other costs. Every expense had come out of my own pocket. She immediately shook her head. "You're lying." Then she pulled a wrinkled IOU out her bag. "Your father signed this himself." I looked down at the paper. It claimed that Yang Hao had borrowed 500,000 yuan from Xiao He. Seeing the signature, I couldn't help laughing. In my previous life, this very document had been used to force me to give up my inheritance. I calmly placed the IOU on the nurse's counter. A handwriting examination costs 30,000 yuan. While you're arranging that, please call the police as well. Before long, police sirens echoed outside the hospital. At that moment, Lu Yin suddenly rushed out from the emergency stairwell. Her face looked unusually flushed. She held a syringe tightly in her hand as she charged toward me. "If my life is ruined, I'm taking you down with me." Before she could get close, one of the bodyguards restrained her. The syringe fell onto the floor, spilling pale yellow liquid across the tiles. Moments later, officers from a narcotics division arrived and immediately handcuffed her. We received a report about illegal drugs. I looked down at Lu Yin. "Chen Xingshan gave that to you, didn't he? Did he tell you it was some kind of love potion that would make me come back to you?" Her expression instantly changed. I leaned closer and quietly asked, "Have you ever wondered how he knew you'd come looking for me today?" Just then, my phone vibrated. It was a video call. On the screen, Chun Shingshan was raising a glass while drinking with Yang Che. He laughed. Thanks for taking care of everything, Boss Yang. Your younger brother is much more entertaining than Lu Yan. Completely drunk, Yang Che smiled foolishly and lifted his own glass. Brother Chun said he's going to organize an art exhibition for me. I ended the call without another word. Just then, Chairman Lin arrived. I turned toward him. Chairman Lin, it's time to settle the accounts for your son's 500 million yuan gambling loss in Macau. Chairman Lin tightened his grip on his cane before striking it firmly against the floor. The sound echoed through the hallway. Ignoring everyone's reactions, I quietly walked into the hospital room. Yang Hao lay on the bed, breathing heavily. It looked as though he wanted to say something. I stepped closer. Dad, did you ever know that Yang Che isn't actually your biological son? I looked at him silently. His throat trembled as if he wanted to respond. Slowly, he reached out with his thin hand and tightly grabbed my wrist. I smiled as I gently pried his hand away. Inside my suit jacket was an old, yellowed photograph. It showed my mother with her arm around me while I wore my middle school uniform. Behind us stood my father, smiling as he cut my birthday cake. The moment he saw the photo, his eyes widened. A single tear rolled down his cheek. Then the heart monitor let out one long, steady beep. His eyes slowly closed. I adjusted my suit jacket and looked out the window into the dark night. For a brief moment, I felt like lighting a cigarette. The lights above the emergency room suddenly went out. Before I could react, Chairman Lin Jianbang pressed the dragon-headed cane in his hand against my throat. The old fox who had ruled the business world for 40 years had finally dropped his kind and gentle disguise. The veins on his hands bulged as he tightened his grip. You really think that ledger makes you untouchable? I calmly raised my hand, signaling my bodyguards not to interfere. The faint scent of sandalwood drifted through the air. I looked at Chairman Lin and smiled. Chairman Lin, do you know why the Macau casino send you cigars every month? I felt his cane tremble slightly. Slowly, I took out my phone. Because every time you use your son's account to launder money, the casino surveillance cameras record every transaction. Just then, a loud scream echoed from the elevator. Yang Che stumbled out. His white shirt was stained with red wine, and he tightly clutched the exhibition contract Chun Shingshan had given him. The moment he saw the surveillance footage on my phone, his expression changed completely. He tore the contract into pieces. Impossible. Brother Chen told me it was a legitimate investment. I bent down, picked up the torn pieces, and calmly put them back together. Across the paper, the words became visible. Art laundering agreement. I looked at him. Didn't Chun Shingshan tell you that after these fake artworks are auctioned, all the money goes straight into his father's campaign fund? Yang Che's face instantly turned pale. He kept shaking his head. Impossible. It can't be muttering those words over and over. He stumbled backward before running away, looking as though he had completely lost his mind. Once again, police sirens echoed through the night. This time, however, they belonged to the Disciplinary Inspection Committee. As Chairman Lin was escorted away, his dragon-headed cane slipped from his hand and landed near my feet. He glared at me with hatred. You little bastard. You set me up. I simply smiled and waved goodbye as he was taken away. Lu Yin was escorted away as well. Later, inside the hospital morgue, Yang Hao's body rested silently inside the cold storage drawer. His face had already turned pale. My stepmother held the death certificate tightly before glaring at me. Give me 50,000 yuan for the funeral. Otherwise, I'll tell every reporter that you're an unfilial son. Without saying a word, I placed a check on the metal table. I looked at her calmly. Is this enough to buy your silence? The moment she reached for it, I quietly pressed the recording button hidden inside my pen. A woman's recorded voice immediately filled the room. It was her own voice from the beauty salon the previous day. Once the old man's insurance pays out 3 million yuan, Xiao Che's overseas study plans will finally be settled. She froze. Al, where did you get that recording? The color completely drained from her face. Her manicured nails dug deeply into her palms. I smiled. The girl who does your beauty treatments just received an Ivy League admission offer. I looked directly into her eyes. Oh, and one more thing. Yang Che's SAT scores were purchased. Columbia University's complaint letter should be arriving very soon. Her phone suddenly began ringing nonstop. She answered the video call with trembling hands. On the screen, Yang Che was crying hysterically. Mom, Chun Xingshan abandoned me on a gambling boat in international waters. Gunshots echoed in the background. Someone shouted in English, Asian dog, pay your debt. My stepmother collapsed onto the floor. Looking at her, I asked quietly, is 50,000 yuan enough to save your son now? I loosened my tie. No. I'd rather watch all of you deal with the consequences of your own choices. That evening, Lin Corporation held a grand banquet to celebrate my appointment. Crystal chandeliers illuminated the hall. Without warning, one of them shattered. Gunshots rang out. Screams filled the room. Exactly as the system had predicted, I dove for cover. The assassin sent by Chun Xingshan's father accidentally shot Lin Jianbong's illegitimate son instead. The same arrogant young man who had once run me over in my previous life. A single bullet struck the center of his forehead. One of my bodyguards hurried over and handed me a blood-stained financial report. President Young. The Lin family's overseas assets have all been frozen. I quietly wiped the blood from my ring before looking toward the surveillance monitors. On the screen, Chun Xingshan was being escorted away by Interpol officers. He struggled desperately against them. Meanwhile, news arrived that Yang Che's body had been recovered from the Mekong River. An invitation to the fake art exhibition was still tied around his ankle. Just then, the familiar mechanical voice echoed inside my mind. Ding! Congratulations, host. You have completed the bloody banquet event. Reward, Eye of Fate. You may now foresee 3 future fatal crises. At that moment, the banquet hall doors slowly opened. Lian walked inside. She was wearing the same white dress she had worn the day we first met. Her trembling hand pointed a gun directly at me, but blood was already soaking through her abdomen. Chun Xingshan's final gift to her. A miniature bomb hidden inside her navel piercing. She looked at me with hatred. Let's die together. Before she could finish speaking, a violent explosion swallowed her final words. Blood and smoke filled the banquet hall. I stood there silently. In the drifting smoke, it almost felt as though the lingering spirits from both my past and present lives had finally appeared before me. Then my phone lit up once more. The system had sent one final message. Final trial. End the cycle with your own hands. Later, I stood quietly inside my new home. The enormous floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the brilliant city lights. For a moment, they reminded me of the burning fuel tank from the car accident in my previous life. I lit a cigarette. The small flame from the lighter illuminated both my face and the portrait of my mother beside me. The end.